And now on to our program. And to introduce our program, looks like he made it. Kingsley Kelly, come on up.
Is he still president? What the heck's going on here? Well, I do. I am grateful to be here today, and frankly, it's only because President Rachel dropped that restraining order. So I'm thankful for that opportunity. Hey, so today it's my pleasure to introduce two people that I suspect many of you already know, but maybe not. So it's time for Know Your Speakers. Deanne Everson, Bob Wise. This is the CEO and executive director of United Way of Jackson County. That's right, Deanne Everson. Bob's the vice president and general manager of KOBI TV, KOTI TV, your locally owned TV stations. Born and raised in Texas. Go ahead, shout it out. Bob Wise, that's right. Deanne is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Serves on the Oregon Community Foundation Board. Anybody? Deanne, that's right. Bob is on the Rogue Valley Manor Board, among others. Proud grandparent to Sophia. Bob Wise, he gets a picture every day of his grandchild on his phone. Amazing technology. Has a huge collection of Pez dispensers. That's right. Oh, that's a good guess. Deanne Everson. Go by the United Way office. It's remarkable. Some of those Pez's are really old in there, though. I'll just say that. Named one of Oregon's great leaders by Oregon Business Magazine. Deanne Everson, that's right. But Bob has been named Oregon's Broadcaster of the Year twice. So you got heady company there. And finally, community-minded leader and genuinely nice person. That's right. Both of them. Both those two. And that was my attempt, obviously, at a lighthearted introduction to a very important and serious topic that Bob and Deanne and a special guest are going to talk about today. So please give a warm Rotary welcome to Bob Wise and Deanne Everson.
Hey, everybody, and say hello to our owner and president of KOBI, Patsy Smullen. Got to here a little bit late, but she's over there judging every word I say, I'm sure. I want to start by recognizing our partners on this campaign that you're about to learn more of. We've got the, Blue Star list here. Of course, United Way of Jackson County, All Care Health, Steve and Christy Rowe Motors, Options of Southern Oregon. I'm so glad Kurt and Heidi are here, Oregon Community Foundation, and Jackson County Health Department. To start things off, I'm going to show a brief video, or actually John is going to show a brief video that my friend Scott G put together to give you a little story of how we got to where we are today. Or I could act it out. Here it is.
I'm U.S. Senator Ron Wyden. It's okay to ask friends or family members if despair has them thinking of taking their own life. Know how to ask them. Know the signs of suicide. Remember, we're all in this together.
Every year, over 800 Oregonians die by suicide. If you're watching this video, I'm certain that at one point suicide has impacted you in some way. So in 2019, NBC5 and several community partners introduced a suicide prevention initiative called In This Together. Its goal to raise awareness of our suicide and mental health crisis and offer hope and help to those in need. After airing thousands of PSAs and receiving millions of responses through social media, it was clear that our messages of awareness and education and hope broke through. We worked hard to break the stigma associated with these difficult conversations. In This Together was a 5-year initiative that ended in 2024, but many of our local health organizations asked if we could resume this highly successful program. So this January 2025, we are launching a new suicide prevention initiative. It's called Tomorrow Needs You. Suicide and mental health issues impact all of us, regardless of income or age. Here are 2 of the spots we plan to run to launch this new campaign.
Sometimes The ones who need help the most don't ask for it. But you can be the one to notice. You can be the one to listen. You could be the one to ask, do you need some help? Because one conversation could be the answer someone desperately needs. Be the one to care. As you age, you often spend more time alone and isolated. And loneliness leads to depression. And depression can lead to suicide. It's time to talk about that. It's okay. Taking the first step may feel hard, but it's a step towards a better, brighter tomorrow. Tomorrow needs you. You're not alone in this.
We are again dedicating enormous resources to this new initiative, including new public service announcements, news stories,
Hope is a really powerful word.
and interactive social media campaigns. We are going to tackle this unlike any other TV station in the country, and with your help, we will break the stigma. Thank you. So we use the phrase stopping the stigma a lot in this campaign. I think it's important that we understand the definition. Stigma in simple terms is a negative attitude or belief about a person or group, often implying social disapproval or shame, that can lead to discrimination or exclusion. As stated in the video, our goal is to break this stigma as much as possible in addressing suicide prevention and mental health issues openly and honestly. I doubt there's a person in this room that has not been touched by mental health issues or suicide, whether it's a family member, a friend, a coworker, or yourself. That brings me to the story of a dear friend of mine, Mr. Steve Rowe. I've known Steve for 21 years, but it was at lunch 11 or 12 years ago when we truly got to know each other beyond a business relationship. I tell you that to share with you how strong this person is. Steve talked about the most difficult time in his life with me that day. And then he was kind enough a few weeks ago to share it with our viewers and to share with you today. And the courage it takes for Steve to make a difference in the community he cares so much about is shown and is so evident. Scott, our creative services director, edited down a lengthy conversation we aired on our news, but we would like to show you, and if you'd like to see the entire conversation, please go to KOBI5.com. Both elements are on there, but we do have a condensed version I'd like to share with you. Thanks, John.
I'm Craig Smullen. Wednesday on NBC5 News at 6, NBC5 and the United Way of Jackson County launch the Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Awareness Project, Tomorrow Needs You. We begin with a deeply personal conversation with Steve Rowe, the general manager of Rowe Motors. Steve shares a story of heartbreak and hope that you would never suspect was about him. Please join Steve and I Wednesday on NBC5 News at 6 for the launch of Tomorrow Needs You.
Only on NBC5 News tonight, we're launching a new community initiative this week entitled Tomorrow Needs You. Suicide and mental health issues impact all of us, regardless of income or age. To help kick off this new program, NBC's Craig Smullen introduces us to a local business leader who has overcome mental health issues himself and wants to make sure people know that help is out there for everyone.
If I have a heart condition, I go to a cardiologist, I'm okay to talk about that. If it's a cancer and I go to an oncologist. But if I say I went and saw a mental health professional, and I will say, I think this is changing in our country. I think it is more okay to talk about mental health.
Rowe Motors general manager Steve Rowe readily admits he didn't always feel this way. About 20 years ago, a mental health worker at a leadership conference for car dealers told Rowe he might have PTSD and should consider getting some professional help. Grants Pass car dealer didn't tell anyone.
Didn't even tell my wife because I was so embarrassed. Because mental health was something that happened to somebody else, but it didn't happen, was not supposed to happen to me.
Rowe was bullied both physically and emotionally and given the nickname Lurch, the imposing butler in the popular Addams Family TV show.
Lurch was tall, ugly, and stupid. And I am tall. And I saw myself as ugly, and I definitely saw myself as stupid.
While starting his healing journey wasn't easy, Rose says opening up to others has helped him tremendously. He encourages anyone going through a tough time to just talk to someone, anyone.
If you're struggling, don't keep it bottled up, because it's like a time bomb and it's waiting to go off and it's going to explode. But if we can have the outlet of another person, whoever that person is, or whatever the situation is that makes you well and healthy, that's okay to do.
Steve, you're a superstar in my eyes, and I'd like to invite you to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Bob. And this is a subject that obviously goes back to my days in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, where I grew up. And Sault Ste. Marie is right on the Canadian border. And I was one of those students that didn't fit in. Came from, a good family, but for me, I never had that person that came alongside me and said, "You matter." I'll tell you a quick story. And so this is hope. And when it came time to get a dog, a therapy dog, she's actually my fourth therapy dog. Actually, when we leave here today, we're going to visit Rogue Regional Medical Center, and we go to the behavioral health unit. And this is a place that I was received outpatient treatment with Dr. Phillips, when about 20 years ago, and it made a big difference for me. And so that's the reason when Bob first talked about this, I'm a business in Grants Pass, and I was afraid that, I didn't want it to affect our employees, our customers, where people said, well, there's something wrong with this guy. But I will say that it was exactly the opposite. People have come alongside me in many, many different ways. But a quick story about power of hope is I visit the Oregon Youth Authority, which is behind Walmart, Grants Pass. And this was before COVID. And I had another therapy dog. Her name was Molly. She was a great dog, a great therapy dog. And my wife and I they have 4 units there. One of them are called pods. And we host one of the pods for Christmas. And there was a youth, we went inside there, and there's about maybe 22 youth that were incarcerated. These young men are 12 to 24 years old. And when I walked in, we brought presents. We brought some pizzas and some cake and ice cream and soda, things that would appeal to young men that grow up, they're in a prison. And they're at Grants Pass. And I noticed that in the back of the room, there's a solitary unit, like a solitary housing unit. And this young man was in there, and he's sitting on a concrete bed, and there's a basin of water and a toilet. And I said, what happened to him? And I never asked what's wrong I want to know what's happened to that person. And they said, well, he got in a fight, and so he's not able to participate tonight. And I said, gosh, would it be okay if I took Molly in there and visited with him for just a few minutes? And they said, well, he's not really that violent right now. Let's give it a try. Because earlier had been this fight with another youth that was incarcerated there. And Christy my wife was not very happy with me when I went in there. But we sat down and talked for a few minutes. And I said, would you like to hold Molly? And he said, yes, I would. And over the course of the next 30 minutes, we visited. And I learned that he was from Salem. And his parents, this was his first Christmas alone incarcerated. And he was by himself, and his parents' car had broken down as they weren't able to visit him. And he was just generally distraught. And he was, patting on Molly the whole time. And he was calming down. You could just watch his anger go down, and his distraught. And so I asked one of the guards, would it be okay if he came to the Christmas party? And so they, he seems good. And we'll say for the rest of the evening, he was really, really good. And we had a great Christmas together, sang some Christmas carols, and just try to build some normalcy in somebody's life for those few minutes. And that saying, have left there. Of course, during COVID, we weren't able to go back to the OYA because of COVID. And Molly had passed away during this COVID time. And so I brought this dog in, Hope. And when it came time for a therapy dog, I thought, what would be a perfect name for a therapy dog but Hope? And so I brought Hope in. And this young man who I didn't know, he came up to me and he says, do you remember me? And I said, no, I really don't. And he says, well, you were here a couple of years ago and you had I think it was a different dog. But he says, you sat down with me and you visited with me. And for that time, I got to tell you, I'm graduated high school. He says, I'm due to be released in a couple months and I'm really doing well. And I'd like to think I had a small part in that. And for that one time, and one of the things that I really believe in strongly, and I know in Rotary, you're not supposed to pass out your business cards. So I'm not, but I am going to pass them out today. But I'm going to pass out a different kind. It's you matter. And I think it's so important in my case, when I grew up in high school, that I didn't matter. And so whether it's a person in your life, you never know how we can touch someone in life that might be struggling. A person, we don't walk around with signs on that says, I'm struggling. But sometimes, you just don't know. And so I've given it to people that are homeless on the street. I've given it to people that at the bank teller at the bank, and I'll see it the next day and they have it taped up on their teller station. So that thing there. The other one I give you is on their business card, a collector's edition, and this is for Hope's business card. She carries her own business card. And it talks about that her favorite toy is tennis ball, favorite activity is running, popcorn favorite treat, and greatest accomplishment, becoming a therapy dog. I would just encourage all of us to make a difference in that life. And for me, I will tell you, it's going to come for a full circle, because a few years ago, we set up a fund in Chippewa County where Sault Ste. Marie is, and I set it with an endowment, long-term endowment, so it happens, still stays active after we pass away, and it's for youth mental health. And the fund is growing with other donations. It's a youth mental health fund. And some of the other students in my graduating class, I went to them that are kind of heading it up. This is my 50th year reunion. Can't believe it, that old, but it's 50 years coming up for me in August 6th. And I wasn't going to go back, but I approached our graduating class, and I've never heard of this being done before, but I says, I would like to set up a fund for youth mental health. He says, you probably don't remember me, but I was that person that didn't matter. And I said, I'd like to think that I've done some things along the life that have made me successful. And I don't know what that word success means. And so Christy and I are going to put up $5,000 for our graduating class, along with the earnings from this endowment fund. And we're going to develop a youth mental health fund. And the part that really is kind of, as you can tell, it's emotional for me, is they asked me to talk for 10 minutes at the graduating class at my 50-year reunion about the power of giving back. So for me, that's just, and I like to think that everybody in this room is Rotarians. I'm a Rotarian, past, but each of us can make a difference in the lives of others. And just by just asking a person those few words, how they really matter. Thank you very much.
I'll follow that. One of the biggest reasons I'm in broadcasting is to hopefully make a difference to the communities we serve. In my 42 years in this world of broadcasting, I don't think there's ever been a more important issue that we've addressed with this campaign. We will continue to do all we can to educate, inform, and engage people to understand how they can make a difference, just as Steve just said. Now I'll turn the mic over to one of my closest friends and truly one of the people that works every single day to make our community stronger tomorrow than we are today. Please welcome the Executive Director of the United Way of Jackson County, Deanne Everson.
I thought you weren't supposed to follow kids or dogs. Especially not Hope. My goodness, that was hard. Thanks so much for having us today. Tomorrow Needs You shows that we can talk about hard things even at lunch. And if we can do that at lunch, we can do that anytime. When we began our first suicide prevention programming in this together, people would come and see me at work. They would drop by, close the door, and tell me their own story about a suicide attempt. If someone they loved, sometimes it was themselves, or someone they really cared about and they didn't step in their minds and time. But it wasn't long before they didn't close the door anymore. And I would challenge all of you today to don't close the door. Open it, have these conversations. They're hard, but they're really important. At the beginning of the current school year, we lost 3 students in rapid succession. And Bob knew we had to respond as a community and to stand up another program. And that became Tomorrow Needs You. And we have such strong, brave, caring people like Steve and like many of you in this room. And if you have a story and you're willing to share it, we are always looking for those local leaders to share their voice with these efforts that we do. So if you see the spots, please share them. And if you know people who are struggling, it is never too soon to save someone's life. Tomorrow really does need all of us, and it needs you. Bob, you're coming back up.
So any questions at all about the program or anything else? Patsy, always have, there you, oh, look, she has a question.
What's the most challenging part of it? The hardest thing?
That's
Great yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that, Patsy, and I probably should have included in my words because we're not experts in this space, right? So we have experts help us with all the messaging that we do. Certainly not Steve's Story. Steve's Story stands alone, but the messages that are commercials or PSAs that you see, those are vetted by people that are much smarter than us in this space to make sure we're wording things correctly and that we are hopefully hitting the right target points. Scott does a great job working with a lot of individuals, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen that we want to make sure that we do it correctly. And then judging how well we're doing, it's by you sharing and hopefully saying to somebody, hey, are you okay? Right? I mean, that's all we can really hope for. We can certainly hope that stats come down on suicides, but you know, it's our goal that they would not happen at all. But all we can really do as a TV station, United Way, is push that message as hard as possible and hope that you join us in doing so. Yes, Pam.
Focused on this issue, or is your main focus getting the message out so it's an individual to individual thing?
Both in.
Both in?
Right. So we work with all the organizations who deliver services and options, and Jackson County Mental Health are all a part of vetting the spots, but so are the community members, because if we did a really hollow spot that didn't hold meaning, but professionals thought it was awesome, which can happen, it doesn't work the same as when someone like Steve tells his real story and people know him and understand that that's what life really is. So the more we can do that together as a community, the better. And we can't do this kind of community change without television and social media.
Well, we appreciate you. I'm sorry, Patsy's got her hand up again. Oh. I'll leave that.
All the nerve.
Well, you're going to get a better answer than I.
I doubt it. So what do? You talk to people, right? You support them. You offer a hand, a shoulder, and you step up to provide resources where they are. These are tough times for a lot of folks. And sometimes just having the opportunity to have a conversation releases the toxic stress in someone's life. But there are resources out there, sharing 988, sharing where to call, where to text, how to show up for someone is available and out there, and it's on every single spot.
Yes.
Here comes Steve.
Oh, you got preempted by hope.
No, I was just reading an article in the New York Times, and they said a question that comes up that really was profound to me. And the question is, or an answer to a question is, are you looking to be helped? Are you looking to be hugged? Or are you listening to be heard? And for me, I think that those three things really can make a difference. You never know where somebody's coming from in that question of the struggle of being helping. Just so many times, I think it's just a matter of listening to somebody. And you don't need to say a word, but just by caring for that person and listening to them with really an honest intent to listen and also to find help along the way. You just networking, and Rotary is a wonderful way to come together and help that same situation, as well as, resources in the community help each other.
Is suicide a growing problem? I mean, do we have more now in our population than say 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Why now are we having this? Or you've been at this since 2019, but is it a growing problem?
Okay, I would just say that when we began in 2019 within this together, our suicide rate in Jackson County was 3.5 times the national average. 3.5 times the national average. And it was across the spectrum, all the age spectrum. We were having a huge problem. When we wrapped it up, we had dropped over those 3.5, 4 years to the national average. And then in September, within 6 weeks, losing 3 kids was the first time in 18 months we had lost any youth. And so this is the hardest project. I guess I would answer a little bit of Patsy's question too. What am I most afraid of, I think, is we can't mess this up. And so that's why it's a privilege to get to work with Bob and all the partners that we bring together to say, we can't screw this up. And so we're ever mindful of that, but it's real. And often it's an irrational random act. It's not people who are necessarily mentally ill or any of those things. They've just suffered some sort of traumatic loss that triggers them to have no hope. But we have hope. And you can have our card.
I just add, journalistically, we didn't report on suicides. And I had a very close friend of mine who was the U.S. Attorney for Oregon, a gentleman named Dwight Holton, who after running for Attorney General of Oregon, lost Evan Rosenblum, ended up running an organization called Lines for Life, which is the statewide suicide prevention hotline. And Craig Smullen and I, in our newsroom, got him on speakerphone and said, not doing anything ain't working. These people are taking their own lives, specifically teens. We need to approach this differently. That conversation with Dwight not only led to In This Together launching, but a statewide effort that was done with the Oregonian newspapers all over the state, TV stations all over the state, called Breaking the Silence, which was a week-long program of telling stories, like Steve's story, the importance of connection. That's how, you kind of just push the needle a different direction, just because not talking about it didn't work. So I go back to breaking the stigma. Having that conversation is critical. And if you heard Deanne's words of they used to close the door to talk about these things, now they leave the door open. Boy, that's huge. I tell Deanne's story all the time. Yes.
Yeah, it's not so much as of a question as just a testimonial of someone who works for a youth organization and has seen the students who know the youth who have taken their own lives over the last, many years. Your campaign has worked as far as getting people able to talk about it and breaking down that stigma, where we can invite therapists or counselors from Options to come in and talk to our youth, and they're available like that. They come in and they can train our staff on how to ask the questions in the right way to help steer it. And I think that was really, I've noticed a difference in it. I've been in the organization for 11 years, but I really noticed it about 4 years ago or so when your campaign first started. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you do and for continuing that work, because it does make a difference.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry. Yes.
Where can us parents go to learn the skills to open that door. Or the grandparents learn the skills to talk to their children and their grandkids about that, because the stigma is there. It's breaking. That's true. But a lot of this material is sent to us, and we don't know how to communicate that to a 12-year-old.
I just want to first steal the chance to say you have your own superpower because you can see other superpowers. So I just want to acknowledge that first. There are 2 classes you can take. The first one is free, and it's mental health first aid, which is just de-escalation techniques for how to make a tough situation a little more calm. It's just the regular next class after first aid and CPR. But you can register at the Jackson County website for a class whenever it comes up, and mostly they're virtual, so you can do them anywhere, anytime. The second course is you have to pay for the course. I think it's around $100, and it's called Assist, and it is applied suicide intervention training. And it's great, and it's skills that all of us can use and learn and help us to have those conversations.
And I'll just say one last thing to kind of reiterate our importance of making sure that we're doing this right. So our partners like Oregon Community Foundation, Steve, and others, plus experts in this world, we meet quarterly on Zoom. And basically I go over, okay, here's what we've been doing. Here's what we're currently doing. Now guide us moving forward. What do you want to see? We want to see more Steve Rose. If you know somebody that'd be willing to share their story, please let me know, because the more people that stand up and share like Steve was courageous enough to do, and just like the people that come now and stand next to him, he wasn't sure how they'd respond. That's the kind of story that cuts through that clutter. So there's more news engagement with this effort. But one thing I know about Rotarians, you care, and we can't thank you enough for allowing us to share this with you today. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Bob and Deanne, for being here today. And truly is commendable work, and we really appreciate everything you're doing in the community. And thank you, Steve, for sharing. And Hope, you're probably my best Rotary guest we've ever had. So cards up here. As you all are aware, we're partnered with the Smart Reader program. And so if you could sign the book, we will get this into the hands of a smart reader. And this week's book is a kid's book about imagination. So if you could sign that, and we'll get that to a smart reader.